What's up? This is Seth Mosley. You're with us on the Made It in Music podcast, and we've got a good one today. We've got my friend Victoria Shaw, who I'm going to get to her intro in just a second. But before we jump into that, I just want to make a quick announcement. Full Circle Music is looking for interns. Internships are one of the best ways to start out in the music industry. You get to be in an environment where you can learn from those around you by soaking up what they're doing day to day. And so if you want to be a part of an award-winning team where you're working on high-level projects, we'd love to have you apply. Head on over to fullcirclemusic.com/intern to submit your application. My guest today is none other than the Victoria Shaw. If you've listened to music at all during the past 20 years, which chances you probably have, chances are you have heard her talent and her songwriting. Victoria's number one compositions include Garth Brooks' The River and She's Every Woman, Doug Stone's Too Busy Being in Love, Ricky Martin and Christina Aguilera's duet, Nobody Wants to Be Lonely, the Garth Brooks Trisha Yearwood duet, Where Your Road Leads, and many more. And she was also a big part of the latest Garth Brooks Netflix documentary that just came out. I know, I watched it, loved it, highly recommend it. That's called The Road I'm On Netflix. Victoria is also the recipient of an ACM Award for Song of the Year, 2 Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Original Song, 4 Emmy nominations, and numerous ASCAP and CSAC awards. She's also a huge supporter of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation and has donated both royalties, her time, and talent to the organization. In addition to writing and performing, Shaw is also a music producer, including co-producing Lady Antebellum's debut album, for which Shaw won a 2009 CMA Award for Single of the Year, I Run to You. And Victoria is currently in the studio producing and writing with up-and-coming rising star artist Cooper Allen. I can speak to that. We'll talk about that in the interview. He is amazing. And she also has her own show on PBS, which is called Songwriters Under the Covers with Victoria Shaw. I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Victoria, thanks so much for being here.
Oh my God, I'm so impressed with me.
I'm so impressed with you.
Oh my God, it sounds so much more impressive when you say that.
You just need me to follow you around and introduce you everywhere.
I just need you to tell my kids that their mom is cool.
You can just copy paste that and put it in like one of those little buttons. You can just press that.
You know, the other day I was actually driving in the car with my daughter Ava. She's 19, and The River came on, and she said to me, "I don't think I've ever heard the record version." I go, "What?" She goes, "I think I've only heard him sing it live and you sing it live." She goes, "I'm not sure I've ever heard this version." I was like, I'm really way too much of a mom. See,
wow.
I put it outside the door when I come in at night.
You can't be, yeah, exactly. You can't be too cool in your own house.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Hey, well, let's jump all the way into this. How did you get started on your journey into music?
Music was the only thing I wanted to do. Like, the only thing from day one. I don't remember ever having, I think there was a week I wanted to be an astronomer, but other than that, music was in my house. I came from a very musical family and nobody pushed it on me. It was just, that's what we had in the house. We weren't like a sports family. We were a music family. And I just, from an early age, started to write songs. And even though that was more like a hobby, I really sang. That was my love. And, had my first band when I was 12 and just started from there.
That's awesome. So when you first got interested, like in working in the music industry, like what was your first kind of inroad there?
Well, it's funny that I heard you asking for interns because I was born in New York and raised in Los Angeles, which makes sense that I'm in country music or whatever. But I moved back to New York when I was 18, and I just sent out letters to every recording studio that I could find saying, "Hey, I'm new in town, but I can answer phones, I can sweep, I can make tape copies, I can sing background. I just want in, and I'll work for free." Because free is very enticing to people, Everybody likes free. And my whole thing was, if they just let me in the door, I will make myself invaluable. And they'll ask me to stay, and then hopefully I can start making, some money, paid by the hour. And that's exactly what happened. When I got to New York, I got this job at a recording studio, and I learned so much from being there. At first it was for free, and then I said, I can't really afford to do this anymore. And they were like, wait, we'll pay you, whatever it was, $10 an hour. Okay. And then from there, it got me, the owner of the studio also hosted a open mic night at a club, a bar. and they needed a piano player because their piano player didn't show up that night. And I ended up accompanying everybody, and that got me gigs as a piano bar player. It was just like one thing after another. If that's, if you wanted me to go way back, that's the answer to that question.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've worn many hats in the industry, again, whether it's songwriter or TV show director or producer or talent scout, I guess you would call it. What was the first thing that you started doing, like on a I'm in this on a professional level? Was it with songwriting?
First of all, I think if you can make a living with your music, you are professional. So as soon as I started to pay all my rent playing in the bars, I was professional.
That's well said. Very well said.
It's true. If some people never make it onto a record deal, but they make their living as a musician, they are professionals.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be a singer and get a record deal. That was my goal. That was my dream. And the songwriting was kind of secondary, just something I did when I had bands back in California, and I wrote songs with my sister. It interested me, but nothing like passion. And somehow I fell in love with country music in New York, which is funny, but I started to write a song and it came out country. And I started to come down to Nashville trying to get a record deal, but somebody had told me to go to the Bluebird Cafe and check out an In the Round. It was kind of new at the time. And I went to the Bluebird Cafe and I saw this In the Round with hit songwriters playing their hit songs. And it was like a religious experience where I thought, okay, I'm going to buckle down and really concentrate on the songwriting, and I'm going to write hit songs for other people, and I'm going to get noticed, and I'm going to get my record deal. It was kind of naive, but it ended up being a very good idea. Thank God I didn't want to be a dancer, because I couldn't dance. But I could write, and I had a sense of it, and I just started to really take writing seriously, thinking that would be my in to get a record deal, which eventually happened. But funny enough, the songwriting ended up being the love of my life, and also the thing that was always consistently successful after a while.
So how did you kind of go about finding your, I know finding your lane, that's like the biggest thing that a lot of people struggle with is, it's not that certain writers who can never find traction. It's not because oftentimes they're bad writers. It's just because they're in the wrong lane. How did you know for you it was country?
Yeah, that was just so wild. I mean, as I said, I wrote this song one night coming home from a piano bar gig in New York, and I was still living with my aunt when I first moved there in Long Island. So I had to be from Manhattan to Long Island. And I just finished this late night bar gig, and I wrote these words on the train. I'm in a smoke-filled car on the LIRR, which is the Long Island Railroad, and home seems so far away. I wrote this whole lyric. And when I got back to my aunt's house, she didn't have a piano, and the only thing I had to write the music on was those little old Casio. I'm holding my hands at like 6 inches wide, and you could only play one note at a time. Dun, 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 dun. And it turned out to be like a country melody, and I wrote this country song. And my father, who was kind of an inventor and always kind of let's try it, when I played it for him at one point, he said, why don't you fly out here, and I'm going to find musicians, and we'll make a demo. So we made a demo of this song that I wrote, or a record at the time, a little 45. And I went back to New York, and I called up the local radio station, who I didn't realize was the biggest radio station in the country. And it was my local radio station. And I said, hey, I wrote this song, and I heard you were a nice man, and would you listen to my song? And the guy said, well, I'll listen to it, but we won't play it on the radio. And I brought it in, and then he asked me to leave it with him. And a couple of days later, they called me and said, we just tried your song on the radio. It's because I mentioned New York, and it became like this local hit on this huge station. So Honestly, that was all of a sudden where I started to really look at country and think, I'm really enjoying this. Like I listened to country radio, and I realized that I knew a lot of these songs because back in the early 80s, it was kind of a crossover. Everybody listened to Dolly and Kenny Rogers and all those people like that. So I was actually more familiar with country than I thought. And I just fell in love with the actual art of writing and all their great lyrics and all their great melodies.
So what was the journey from, okay, you decided this is what you want to do, and then, years later you end up on a Garth Brooks record, and then another one, and then another one. How did you kind of find your way into that opportunity?
First of all, it was an 8-year overnight success, okay? I started to drive back and forth between New York and Nashville for 8 years because I didn't want to give up my good, good paying gigs. And I also really wanted to pursue a record deal in country music. Now, I think I probably would have moved along faster had I just committed to Nashville, but I didn't. And that was the way my story went. But I would drive back and forth for 8 years. And when you start to network in Nashville, as you know, and you just go out every night and you listen to music and you're young and you have the energy to go out, and you sit next to somebody who happens to be a musician or somebody who's new in town. You find your quote unquote class, like my class of '89. My buddies that I became friends with was Garth Brooks. He had no record deal. Faith Hill, she was the secretary at the publishing house that I finally got a publishing deal at. Marcus Hummon, he had just come to town. All these soon to be very, very successful people were just my class. If everybody, I of course tried to get writing sessions with like famous people, and they didn't write with me because they didn't have time. And I understand that now. So if you're always looking too far ahead, you got to look around you and see your class of up and comers, because talent attracts talent. And I think that we all just, kind of gravitated towards each other.
Yeah. That's such a good point, because I think so many people want to skip ahead in 10 chapters in their journey, but they don't realize who's right around them. Hey, just because whoever around you doesn't have a record deal or have a publishing deal doesn't mean they're not going to be the next person in line. So,
totally. Which is why I still look for new and challenging young artists to write with. And on the other hand, I also weekly or daily get emails asking, hi, I wrote a song and I would really love to collaborate with you, just from random people. Obviously, I'm not interested. I've got work to do, and I can't be just writing with anybody just because they ask, and that's a hard one. But I used to be on their side of the, they didn't have email back then, but I used to be on their side of the request. And I didn't break when they said no, or I didn't hear back. And these people, if it's meant to be, they won't break. It's just, there's only so many hours in the day. And for the most part, I have to try to write with the people now who I know kind of that I'll come out of the room with something solid and hopefully commercial.
Yeah, well, it's an investment of your time. And that's all of us. That's the thing that we have a finite amount of. We all get the same 24 hours in a day. And, I think it's the same thing. You get how many DMs a week. It's not hard for some new up and coming songwriter to send a direct message to 100 A-list songwriters. And I think a lot of them get discouraged when they don't get, a response. And
see, what I would say there is the people that get discouraged really probably weren't going to make it anyway. And I'm not saying that meanly. I'm just saying people like you, people like myself, this was like, I either do this or I don't breathe anymore. Like there was never even, and it might be crazy, but it is crazy to be in this business. It's like, it's the most crazy chance taking, odds against you thing to do. And yet there's nothing in us that thought we could stop pursuing this. It's this or die. And I think you have to have that. Even if you never achieve it, you have to have that mentality, because when people walk up to me at the Bluebird or whatever and go, I've been here 3 years and I'm thinking if I'm going to give it one more year, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to go back to nursing school. I'm going to go back to college. And I always say, if you have an either or, do your or, because people like us, we never had one of them. It's like, I'm either going to do this or I'm not going to breathe anymore.
Yeah, there is no plan B.
There's no plan B.
That's so true. So well said. So obviously, we kind of skipped over a little bit, but incredible run, obviously, with, the Garth Brooks and Faith Hill and all those things. And then that led into you, in 2009, becoming a producer with Lady Antebellum. Can you tell us about that story and how that sort of came together?
Sure. And I didn't mean to skip over your question before, so I'll just give a brief answer on that one.
Yeah, sure.
It's just that Garth and I met in 88 or something like that, 87, 88, I don't remember. By 89, we wrote The River. And we wrote some other songs too along the way. His debut album came out, I don't know, the 91 or 90, whatever. He said The River was going to be on his second album. Didn't happen. And it turned out to be on his third album. And then the rest is history. It became such a huge hit. And then She's Every Woman. But I mean, like I said, that started out with me being friends with a guy who I just thought was talented. And then all of a sudden he exploded and became monstrously big.
Yeah.
And yet that was when I took me 8 years to get a publishing deal. And finally, when I got a publishing deal, the following year, I wrote 3 number ones in 1 year. It was crazy. It was like from 0 to 60, even though it was not an overnight success. So you just have to stick with it, because had I dropped out at 3 years, none of this would have happened, you know?
Well, that's the side of it that, you know, you read the press releases and you see the bios, and everybody on the outside assumes, hey, oh, she's had 3 number ones. She's like an overnight sensation, but it's really never overnight. I can't tell you a single story. I mean, maybe you can, but.
And I was still playing in the bars when The River was on the radio, because you don't get paid for a good 9 months later. So I kept my piano bar gig. Nobody believed me that, you know, when I say, here's a song I wrote for, you know, yeah. Because I was still playing in the bars. But you don't get paid that quickly. And also, like, if you add up, you know, retroactive for 8 years of trying, it's not as much money as you think.
Yeah, exactly. You're still, that's what I tell people a lot is, you know, the checks can look big, but when you divide it over how many decades most of us put into this.
And also, you have high times and you have dry times. And so everything kind of balances out. People think you write one hit song, you're a millionaire.
Yeah. Exactly.
And to answer your second question, in the late 90s, all of a sudden stuff started to change where I wasn't getting as many songs recorded. And I really felt like I was writing just as well as I ever was. And what I saw was happening was all of a sudden, used to be the best song won. And whatever publisher pitched the song, they got it recorded. And then all of a sudden you started to look at album credits and you realize, oh, the producer was the publisher on this song and this song and this song. So they had a special interest to get these songs to the artist. Not saying they were bad songs. I'm just saying that they ended up owning parts of it. So that was really cutting into an average songwriter like myself getting cuts. So at that point, you know, you either, as my daughter always says, pivot, or you basically leave the business, you know? So I wasn't going to leave. I just thought, okay, my theory is, you know, if they don't let me play in their reindeer games, I'm going to find my own reindeer. And I'm going to produce, and I'm going to have to, you know, be a publisher and a producer. I always thought I'd find a guy because I had mostly success writing for men. But Linda Davis, who was Hillary Scott's mom, was a friend of mine. And they were doing a family Christmas show at Opryland, and they had invited me. And I came to see them, and I hadn't seen her kids in a long time. But all of a sudden, Hillary came out to sing. She was 15, 16, I don't remember. Very, very new, very raw, a little pitchy, but had that star quality. Just had something to her. And I went up to her and I said, you know, I'd love to work with you. I'm not even quite sure what I mean by that, but I'd love to work with you. And let's figure it out. And we just started to, you know, she would come to me after school, and I made sure she didn't drop out of anything she was involved in high school, because I'm a mom first, and that's important. But we worked around it, you know. And then eventually she met Charles and Dave, and they started to hang out at the office, and we all just started to write. And it was about a 5-year process. And after about 5 years, when they started to play every week here at 3rd and Lindsley and really start a buzz, I called every professional that I knew, every head of every label, and they came to see them. And by the next day, they had 5 record deals on the table.
Wow. So again, overnight, seems like this band happened, but like you just said, that was a 5-year journey from.
It was 5 years for Hillary and 3 years for the boys. And everybody I had the patience of Job. A lot of my friends who start to develop acts, they get impatient, or they just give up, or they lose their faith in them after a year and a half. And me, it was just, oh, no, we'll get here. You know, in my head, for some reason, I thought it was going to take 5 years, because I heard publishing companies take 5 years to grow. And I don't know why. I thought, okay, so then this will probably take 5 years. And it did, almost to the month, funny enough.
Wow. Yeah. So you kind of, but that's smart though. It sounds like you went in with a pretty realistic expectation.
I don't lose faith that easy. You know, if I believe in something, nobody can talk me out of liking a song or liking an artist. You just can't. If I believe in it, I believe in it. And I, just go until it tells me not to go anymore. Yeah.
Where does that come from for you?
My parents were inventors, or my dad especially, a doer, not a talker, and would make things happen out of nothing. my parents, my dad, they both started in show business, but kind of got out when I was very, very little. And then my dad was constantly trying to find what was his thing. I mean, I can't even tell you how many jobs my dad tried and how many things. And then finally, my mom, who decided she never wanted to diet again and to just be the size she is, she went to go shopping for clothes in her new size and came home really, upset. And she said, there's nothing fashionable for large size women. And my dad said, he was always kind of inventing things. He goes, okay, so what's needed? She goes, a fashion magazine for large size women. He said, let's figure it out. They didn't know the first thing about fashion or about magazines. And by the end, they started this magazine, which had a circulation of, 500,000. And she had a line of clothes with JCPenney. I mean, it went from, I really watched them go for their dreams and never to be afraid of it,
Wow. I had no idea of that. That's awesome.
Although I do really laugh at them. I always say, why did they make their money when I left the house?
Right.
I'm modestly, but they really did make a good, they really exploded afterwards. And the magazine was called BBW, Big Beautiful Women. But now BBW is like part of urban slang. And if you look it up, you'll see that my mom is actually credited with that.
Really?
Yeah.
BBW.
BBW, Big Beautiful Women.
Hey, I love that. I'm all for that. I think, I've got two daughters, so we're always trying to encourage positive body image and all of that. So that's amazing. I had no idea. Yeah. So today, what part of the music industry are you most focused on?
Again, it's about pivoting and diversifying. That's what I find has been my best strength, is just being able to look at what's needed, what lane isn't in, what's not in this lane, possibly so for me, the most important thing right now I'm concentrating on is breaking a new artist named Cooper Allen, who you're very familiar with. Yeah. I met him in the way that never happens, which is a friend of mine called me a few years ago and said, my son goes to school with this guy, college with this guy, and he has a band, and I think he's really talented, and would you talk to him? And I get requests like that from friends all the time, as you do too, and it never pans out. But I said, sure, of course. And I met him, and again, he was kind of raw too, but he had this thing, and I really, really was drawn to his talent and him. Great vibe. And I just said, look, when you're finished with college, keep in touch with me. And if you're done and you want to move to Nashville, let me know and let's get together. And he did exactly that. And I've been working with him ever since. And so have you, which has been just one of the most fantastic three-way collaborations as far as songwriting and producing goes.
Yeah, I've had a blast. And again, I'll brag for Cooper Allen all day long. And yeah. I just think it's awesome seeing what's happening with him and his music. So.
And again, we picked a lane, during a pandemic when everybody's home trying to figure out what the hell to do. He just, for somebody who had to keep kicking to get involved in social media, all of a sudden really dove into TikTok because he had the time and then just exploded on it. He's just exploded. The people have just rallied around him. As he's over probably 3 million streams in 2 weeks on this new single, New Normal. And it's been very exciting, Again, yeah. A lane that's not as used. I love that. Right,
exactly. And yeah, just I think, there's something to the voice of like, if, the thing that he brings to country music nowadays is he's got that classic, deep, real masculine voice that you just don't hear a lot of now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And I love the fact, too, that he was raised on country music. And then his father was a huge 90s 90s rock, really. And we've kind of fused a lot of that, as into, because no matter what he sings, he's going to sound country. So a lot of people, right now are using the urban influence on their songs. He's using more like Weezer.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, no, he's amazing. And yeah, definitely. We'll make sure that all of his music is linked in.
But I hope people follow him because he deserves it, and he's so talented.
He's so talented. So yeah. Well, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, but not to timestamp this too much, but we're, at the time of recording this, it's September 17th. What is going to happen with TikTok?
I don't know. I'm really hoping they're going to make that sale. And again, that's why we're happy to have capitalized on it right now. And I hope those people follow him back to Instagram or to whatever the next thing is. I really hope TikTok gets to stay for a while. And then of course, it's going to do its thing in the next, whatever the next thing's going to be. But I hope they just make that sale, because I think it's silly to.
Yeah, it's such a massive thing.
It is. And I really like it. At first I just thought it was chaos, just chaos. But once you kind of find your lane in TikTok with him, he's found his country music fans and also just college people or people that just see him and go, oh, he's like one of us. He's like a friend,
Yeah.
I personally love all the TikTok recipes. I'm addicted to them. So I'm really hoping that TikTok doesn't go away.
Seriously. Yeah. Well, why don't you share a little bit about, I know just from being involved in it with you, but what does the development process looks like in, 2020? You've been working with him for how long has it been now?
2 years.
So 2 years. So what does the artist development process look like nowadays, and how are you navigating it? How is it maybe different than, your journey with Lady Antebellum?
Well, obviously the whole digital world is completely different. And where we needed a record deal with Lady A, because that's the route you go. I don't know what's going to happen with Cooper. I keep telling him we want to make the right decisions. We're partners, and the beauty. The bummer about digital is that we're definitely not getting paid as songwriters as much as we should. The fabulous thing about digital is that we can just go to a TuneCore or CD Baby or any of these things that help push all of this music out to the universe, to every place that the majors can put. We can too. Terrestrial radio is a different story, but as far as all the other places online, it's really nice that it's given it back to the artist in their capable hands. So it looks different, obviously, in 2020 developing. I think the actual development isn't that different. All about songwriting for me, all about vocals to me, all about studio know-how and just getting comfortable in there. All those things I don't think will ever change, because art is art is art. But as far as the marketing goes, yeah, it's been a real different thing having this, 50,000 followers on TikTok for him, 3 million, almost 4 million likes. That's been a wonderful, powerful tool. And we are definitely, obviously, starting to field calls from different labels and publishers and stuff. It's been interesting. And what's nice is I just want to move steady and slow and make the right decision, the right one that feels right,
Yeah, well, it's got to be, again, this is the common misconception that when you sign a record deal, it's off to the races. That's just one more step in the process.
And a lot of times when you sign a record deal, you put it on a shelf for 2 years while everybody in queue gets to go up this way. And, as far as something like what's happening with Cooper Allen, we don't want to lose momentum. So if we did partner with a record label, they would have to, reassign that line and make sure that we stayed current. So a lot of that stuff will be answered when it's answered. We just kind of been going with our gut, which is kind of how I've done everything. Everybody has a different path and a different lane. So we'll see what happens with him. But I have no doubt that at the end of the journey, Cooper Allen is a major star.
Yeah. Yeah. One way or the other. It's you're totally right. Having to get with the right person who is committed to keeping the momentum going, just like, you've already been doing.
Right now, it's got to be passion over commerce. You can throw a lot of money at a young artist and say, we want to sign you. But if you're going to throw that money at them and make them sit for 2 years, you got to really make the wise choice. Is it worth it? You're going to go for commerce first, or you're going to go for a career, So that's kind of how I think it's important sometimes. You got to separate the two. Yeah,
that's well said. Tell us about Songwriters Under the Covers. What is that?
Songwriters Under the Covers. Basically, a songwriting round, which is, and for me, I've been doing these shows for 20 some odd years, but actually 15 years in New York at a particular club called Birdland, where I would invite 2 other hit songwriter friends, and we would do basically what happens at any writer's night here at the Bluebird Cafe or Douglas Court, where you go round and round, you take turns. It's kind of like a living room party, where people take turns playing their songs. It just so happens that they are hit songs that people have grown up to or, heard on the radio a million times. and you tell the stories behind it. And with me, I only invite my friends who are really fun and funny and talented. So there's a lot of laughs, a lot of ad-libbing, a lot of people singing it. And I've been doing this show for years. And for years, certain people in the industry might come by and say, that should be a TV show. That should be a TV show. And it never, ever, ever panned out. So I just let that go. And then about 2 years ago, I met this guy who's a director, producer of, different live music television things. He saw my show and he took me to breakfast and he said, I really think that what you do could be a TV show. And I said to him, after so many years of this, I said, don't worry about it. It's actually really too hard to sell. I appreciate you saying that. That's very sweet. What are we going to order? And he looked at me and he said, are you kidding? I said, no, I'm telling you, this is just too hard of a concept to sell. And he said, but you've never had me pitch a show. I said, okay, we'll pitch away, but please don't feel bad when it doesn't happen. And 40 days later, we got a green light from All Arts, which is a PBS, a part of PBS stations. And we shot our first season last year, and all 7 episodes came out. And here in Nashville, especially, PBS plays it like every 30 seconds. I mean, it seems to be constantly in rotation, which is lovely. Anybody can see it on the All Arts app on Roku or Apple TV, or coming to their PBS local station in 2021. Although if you're in New York and Nashville, it's on PBS now too. And it's basically the exact same show that I've been doing forever, just done to cameras. And we don't, play it up to cameras. We just make it feel real. The first season, I had wonderful writers like Desmond Child, who wrote Living on a Prayer for Bon Jovi. He's written Livin' La Vida Loca, Dude Looks Like a Lady. I had Jeffrey Steele, who've written What Hurts the Most and incredible songs. Kevin Cronin from REO Speedwagon, playing with Sarah Evans. Pam Tillis, Simon Kirk from Bad Company, you name it. I mean, it's just a real eclectic. It's not necessarily country. It's not necessarily anything. My friend Angela Hunt, who wrote Empire State of Mind for Alicia Keys. I mean, it's really diverse, and that's what makes my shows fun. This season, we shot the first 2 episodes in February in New York, like usual, and then the world shut down. And New York has not reopened as far as venues go, so we were able to get permission to finish the next 5 episodes here in Nashville. So we shot them in June and July. I was scared to death, but I was masked up, and everybody, was following protocol. And my guests were people like Keb Mo, Clint Black, Ruby Amanfu, Tommy Shaw from Styx, Garth Brooks. I mean, Jim Brickman. It's really a fun thing, and it's going to season 2 will debut in December. That's amazing. Well, that speaks to your ability and just the relationships that you've built over the years. I mean, I have a lot of friends from a lot of different places. I just like people, and I just, wherever I am, I just make friends, I guess. So yeah, it's been really fun to be able to call all my friends and say, hey, I've got this show, will you come do it for free? Yeah, exactly. That's so awesome. Well, I'm definitely going to tune in and make sure we put all the info in it about with links in the description. So, what is it like to be? I want to change gears for a second, as I do in these conversations. What is it like to be a parent pursuing a career in music? And this is me asking as a parent who's in music. I hate to talk about gender, and I don't know if this is a gender thing, but I'll just say for me, because I know a lot of my female friends are also a lot more tunnel vision than I've ever been. I had children later in life on purpose because I wanted to be selfish with my time and all my pursuits. But once I had them, it was just for me the priority. And I probably could be a lot richer, and I probably would have written a lot more hit songs if I didn't just. That was my priority. They're now just, I have a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old. But all through their growing up years, this is, for me, they came first, I stopped. I wasn't a nighttime writer, I didn't take lunches. Like I wrote through lunchtime if they, during the day, because a lot of times, normally in a Nashville writing session, you write, then you guys go out to lunch, and then you come back. But it was like, no. Let's just bring our lunch, order in, and keep writing because I have kids to go home to and have dinner with. So my priorities was always family first, and that made everything else really easy, even if it meant turning down some very cool opportunities. There was very few times I would ever write on a weekend. I just didn't want to. And I'll never lay on my deathbed and think, I should have written more. But I'm sure I would have lain on my deathbed and think I should have hung out with my kids more. And I don't ever want to have that feeling. So for me, a little less money and a little more time, that's kind of how I've always done everything. And yet still, when I had my time, between when my kids were in school and I was working, it's balls to the wall, straight ahead, don't stop, get everything done. And as a woman, I will say we are very good at multitasking. So, I can talk to the school, I can keep writing, and I can pick up groceries on the way home. It was, a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And by the way, if that song has not been written yet, a little less money, a little more time, that might be Cooper Allen's next hit song. All three of us will do it. But no. I love that you said that. That's kind of the road that is the road that I've chosen to take. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. I don't do nights. I don't do weekends.
Yeah. And you know what? You will never regret it. You will never regret that. And I never missed a dance. As a writer, it turned out to be better that I did. I mean, I had my record deal and was on the road before I had kids. That really was great. So glad I had that experience. But when I decided I wanted to, finally have kids, I thought, well, I'll go back to writing. And this way I can make up my own schedule. So I didn't miss a dance recital. I didn't miss a school meeting. Those were important things.
Yeah. Well, it looks like,
kids, you might as well raise them personally. Don't you think?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not going to have somebody else do it. That's for sure. So, how do you manage? And you addressed a little bit of this, but how do you find balance in day-to-day life? I know people in music, it's a little bit hard to sort of separate the two, the work-life balance. How have you found that over the years?
I think I'm weird, Seth. I think I'm weird because I've always adored the music business and love it, and I'm still a fan, but I never thought it was all of it. I never thought it was everything, and I never thought it was maybe when I was younger, maybe when I was like, I've got to make it. But in the last 20 some odd years, I just know that I am more than just the music business. I have tremendous amounts of hobbies, interests, and I'm really good at downtime. So I know a lot of people were like, oh, quarantine, I gotta keep writing, or I want to write. Not so much.
Give me your best downtime advice, because that's something that my wife being
You're not all, I just feel like people, then you gotta, I'll say the majority of my friends, and maybe it's more male friends, I don't know, really have a hard time with that downtime. Find some other hobbies and some other things that need to be done, and get into things that there's so many, I have just so many interests, even if it's just reading, of course, traveling was an interest, but I can't do that right now.
Right.
And I've started so many new things during quarantine that I've never done before. And like, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to cook. Do you know how to cook?
That's one thing I'm decent. I'm not amazing, but I'm decent at it.
Well, I'm not a gourmet, but I'm really tasty. And I couldn't do anything other than scramble eggs. And now I've really had the time to really have some fun. I grew flowers because I just wanted to play in the dirt outside, and they grew. I was like, who the hell knew I could grow flowers?
So
I
good.
had time to fix things in my house. I don't know. I never get bored. And honestly, I don't play the piano every day. And when I do, a lot of times, I'm going to tell you something. I take out all my books and I play all these cover songs, and I just enjoy it like I did when I was a kid. I don't feel like I have to be working all the time. I'm sure I'd be richer. I just don't feel that I have to be working all the time. That doesn't define who I am.
Yeah. It's a great perspective. Really, really helpful perspective.
Go get on the floor and play, dress up with your girls.
Yeah.
I'm
definitely doing that this morning.
Build them with something, I don't know, or go teach them how to cook.
Yeah.
My kid's dad used to teach them how to, get on the kitchen. Just something that takes you out of otherwise it really does become the music business.
Yeah.
I still want to be a fan of it and still enjoy it,
Yeah. Well said. Couple more questions, and then we'll jump into our lightning round. What is your favorite part about working in the music industry? We'll start with favorite part, and then I want to hear your least favorite part.
You know, it's funny. I was thinking about this today. I was driving and thinking about how many wonderful friends I've made in the business. Because I was actually on my way to do a vocal with Cooper and my friend Chad Carlson's house. And those are two people I absolutely adore. And I was thinking about how many close and wonderful friends I've made in this business. So I think the best part about it is all these wonderful writing sessions. You and I, we didn't know each other from Adam the first time we wrote, right? Yeah. We met quickly when we were judges at some little talent thing in the industry. But when we got together, that was pretty magical, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. No, it's effortless. I would say every time
effortless. The three of us just totally gelled, and that was so much fun. And when I have those kind of experiences, I can't wait to do that again. So I would say the best part are the friends I've made. Another really cool perk is writing with heroes, like who become friends, you know, or people I'm fans of, you know. Biggest bucket list for me was writing with Burt Bacharach. That was just like, you know, people don't know who Burt Bacharach are. Shame on you. Just Google the man. He's a legend. He's an icon. He is. Sure. I was scared to death, you know, just because I'm still a fan of so many people, you know. Yeah. But and then they become friends, and that's fun too. I mean, Bette Midler was like my idol. She was all over my room growing up, and I have since, you know, become I don't know, I guess you'd call you a friend, you know. We've written together. She's come to see my shows. I'd like to call her a friend. But honestly, I mean, these were people, Olivia Newton-John, you know, all these people who I used to be like, oh, they're just lovely, lovely people. So I think those are the best parts of the business, is making friends.
That's awesome. What is your least favorite part about the music industry?
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of. Can you curse on podcasts?
We have censoring technologies, so it's up to you.
There's just a lot of BS, and there's a lot of wasted time, and there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. To me, that drives me crazy. You know, nobody makes a freaking decision. And I mean, perhaps I jump too fast sometimes, but oh my God, the wheel moves slow on these things. You know, that's one of the reasons I'm enjoying independent publishing and independent producing, you know, and working with Cooper. And we don't have to have meetings upon meetings of what song is right. Hey, I've written how many hit songs? I have how many trophies? If I don't have the gut instinct of probably what's the right song, I don't need an armful, you know, an office full of executives telling you, let's just go with some guts sometimes. I have a lot of friends who are executives too, but I would just say there's a lot of protocol and a lot of hurry up and wait, and a lot of people in certain positions that really don't know as much as I do. Or as much as a good musician does, you know. I don't know, just a lot of BS. But you know what? If I was in the plumbing business, I'm sure I would, you know, there'd be a lot of plumbers and a lot of agencies that was a lot of BS too, and a lot of good plumbers. You know, I think in any business, you're going to have a lot of nonsense and a lot of wasted time and money. Yeah. Show me a big business that doesn't have that.
You wouldn't find it. So that's.
Yeah. I try not to focus on that. You know, I just try to work around it. But I am streamlining I just said to somebody the other day, I'm just streamlining working for a-holes and not working for, I don't work for, but working with, and streamlining the BS out of my life.
That's great. You got to do lifestyle design. We do have a no a-hole policy around here. That's
totally. You know, there's so many nice people to work with. Why do you have to work with somebody who's not nice?
Yeah.
You know?
Life's too short.
Or life's too long sometimes.
Well, that's true. How you look at it.
Yeah.
Last thing before we jump in the lightning round, what advice would you give someone with big dreams of making it in the music industry?
A lot of people I find who, the people that ask the most questions and the most advice are the people that do it the least. I think it's a time waster. That doesn't mean you shouldn't ask for advice or ask for stuff. But when people say, you know, how do I start? My answer, and they hated me for it, is You just start. Like, I didn't have a roadmap. I had no clue what I was doing. And everybody's map is different. But you have to just keep walking forward, keep networking, keep keeping your ears open in case, you're a songwriter and 4 people tell you, I didn't really quite understand the hook line on that chorus. You can't just go, well, you're an idiot. You have to stop and read and think, maybe I didn't nail it right. Like, use criticism positively. If you get one thing, okay, you can brush it off till they don't understand. If you get multiple comments are the same, start to change what you do. And also, I thought I was going to be a recording artist this whole time. Had I closed the door to songwriting or thought, no, I don't want to do that, my whole life would have been different. So if you keep walking forward and that door keeps opening, but you keep insisting upon going to the door that's locked, I don't understand that. And I know so many people who do. Just walk forward and I promise you, doors will open. The right door will open. It might not be the thing you thought was going to happen, but I love this business so much. Had I not made it as a recording artist, had I not made it as a songwriter, I would have been a publicist, I would have been a manager, I would have been an executive. I wanted to be in this game. Yeah. I loved it. I still do.
Well, and that's what it takes. Such great advice. So with that, are you ready for the lightning round?
I am.
All right, here we go. If you were on a deserted island, what is one non-survival related item you'd want to bring?
The first thing that came into my head, this is a really strange thing, but I always say this album called Blue by Joni Mitchell. It's like the staple that's in my car for 30 years. I might bring Blue by Joni Mitchell. I don't know.
All right.
I'm assuming I have food, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Non-survival. Yeah. Who inspires you?
Right now, my kids inspire me. They're amazing. I'm not joking. Like, they inspire me. They are so hardworking and so positive and so, and pivot on a dime. My 19-year-old is back here after going to acting school in New York, and it got closed down for a while. So now she's here and she's nannying and she's making great money and her attitude's good. Her spirits are good. My other daughter, who's 21, in the middle of a pandemic, she's an actress and a singer. All of a sudden, that's not happening. She's now producing people's TV stream shows. She's a producer, making unbelievable money because she pivoted, as she says, and she just started to snowball. She produced one show, somebody else saw it, a Broadway art. All these Broadway stars are knowing my daughter because she's working with them and working with the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation, all these amazing things because they don't say no to anything. I guess they've seen me go for things and they go for things. So I would say my kids are my biggest inspiration right now.
Well said. What is your favorite meal?
Lobster. Lobster at the Palm with a side of the half and half potatoes and onions. That's an easy question. And I haven't gone to any restaurants during COVID. And that's the only thing I find myself craving is a lobster at the Palm.
Making me hungry.
Me too.
What's your favorite grocery
Oh, that's a fun question. I do like Whole Foods, but I don't go there that often, just because it's crazy expensive when you can go to, Aldi. I think Aldi is my favorite grocery store. I actually go there a lot. And they have this one aisle that's so weird because it's a grocery store, but they have this one aisle that has these one-offs. So like you can be all of a sudden get anything. You can get a hose, you can get a shovel, you can get socks. I love that. I go there all the time to see what they have doing on that special aisle. So
like a grab bag. It's a surprise. Lastly, what's a song you wish you wrote?
Oh, there's so many. That's a really hard question. But I would say anything Billy Joel, Burt Bacharach, or Gary Burr wrote.
That's awesome.
Or Paul Williams. I wish I wrote them all.
Gotcha. Hey, this has been an absolute blast, Victoria. Thank you so much for giving us your time and your expertise, your years of wisdom in this. Well, really appreciate you being on our show.
I hope I didn't ramble too much.
No, so good, so good. I got to go back and listen and take notes. So
Okay.
we are going to be doing our deep dive. I know that you are passionate about working with the Cystic Fibrosis charity, so we're going to be doing our deep dive. If people are interested in hearing about the work you're doing with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, that's a tongue twister, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, then they can go to madeitmusic.com and go to the deep dives and check that out. But once again, thank you so much. Where can people connect with you?
Probably Instagram, which is Victoria Shaw Music, or you can go to my website, Victoria Shaw Music. It makes it easy. Or maybe it's victoriashaw.com. I think that's what it is. I would love that. And also, if you want to watch the show on your phone, on your Roku, on your Apple, just go to All Arts and download the app, All Arts, and then put my name in there, and you'll see all the episodes.
Very, very cool. Thank you so much, Victoria.
Thank you. This was a blast, Seth.
What's up? Thank you for watching the Made It in Music podcast season 3. If you want to check out any of the other episodes from season 3, click up here. And we talk in the show about these really cool deep dives with all this extra bonus content. And if you want access to all of those, click here.